Hey, what is up everybody? This is Rob. So for this video, we're actually gonna have a little bit of fun with it. So here's the thing. I have been looking for a new car. Just something fun again. And I've actually been looking at the Civic Type R, notably the FL5 generation. That is the generation that did come out in 2023, so it's still relatively new. As a result, I've been doing a lot of research, and I figured that even if I end up not buying a Civic Type R, I've gotten enough findings that I kind of like to just share them with you guys. So for this video, it's going to be about the 5 things that I've noticed people hate the most about the Civic Type R FL5 Gen. So first things first, this has been the biggest thing that I've seen people hate on, and that is the price, all right? Because here's the thing. On paper, the Type R does start in the mid-40s, which does sound relatively reasonable for what you get. I mean, you're getting the top-of-the-line Honda Civic. But here's the reality. Almost nobody is getting it at MSRP, and definitely not below. Because dealers are tacking on, I'm seeing 5, 10, even $15,000 markups on top of the price. And that's, of course, if you're lucky to even find one at your dealership. So by Honda's own choice, FL5 is being produced in pretty limited numbers, which does mean that demand is out there. But that does mean that getting allocation will feel like pretty much winning the lottery. Because even if you're willing to pay the markup, you might still be waiting a few months or maybe even longer. But the result of that is that you have a car that's supposed to be a $45,000 hot hatch. It ends up costing you $55,000, $60,000, and that's even without the taxes and fees. I mean, when you're at that price point, like the doors open pretty wide for what you can look at. You can get a Mark V Supra, Camaro ZL1, the last ones that were made. You get yourself a nice C7 Corvette. You probably pick up a Grand Touring for around that price. Maybe even a Z06 if you can find a high mileage example. I mean, there's just a lot out there, and I feel like that does kind of make you think, is this Civic Type R really worth it? I mean, for a lot of enthusiasts, that does take the Civic Type R from sort of a dream JDM car to something completely out of reach, and it's just very frustrating. Because for a lot of people, they'd love to own this car, and they wish that a Honda would do something to stop these dealerships from having these absolutely insane, dealer practices in terms of sharpening in another $15,000 markup in every vehicle that they know people want. So this is a fun one to talk about, guys. So let's talk about the styling of it. So the previous generation FK8, that was wild. I mean, I thought it was pretty cool. It had the massive vents, aggressive aero, giant wing. It just screamed like 18-year-old having fun. And that's why I really liked it. But it wasn't for everybody. But on the flip side, nobody could mistake it for just being a normal, non-special Civic. But then we have the FL5. Went in the opposite direction. They went more clean and understated. Smoother lines, more restrained design. While a lot of people actually love the mature look, others do feel it's a little too subtle. Mainly because it doesn't look like it has enough to really differ itself from a normal Civic hatchback. Other than, of course, the spoiler. Because if you're spending nearly $50,000, of course, again, unless you're dealing with a markup, some buyers feel like it should look a little bit more special. So that's why for fans who want something that's actually flashing and head turning, the FL5 may actually feel like a bit of a downgrade compared to the FK8. Due to the type of vehicle the Civic Type R is, this actually was an interesting one to me, and that was that quite a few people had some gripes with the FL5 Gen not giving buyers many choices. If you want automatic, sorry, manual only. For purists that's amazing, but for someone who wants to daily it and maybe you're doing heavy traffic every day, let's remember, guys, not everybody is living in very flat areas. For them, that would kind of suck. Or sharing with a spouse who can't drive a stick, that's also a possibility. It doesn't stop there. There's no sunroof on it, no cooled seats, no fancy customization options. It's essentially what you see is what you get. And for some people, for a car that costs as much as it does, buyers do expect a little bit more, luxury and flexibility. You have some competitors like the Golf R or even the Hyundai Elantra N. They offer more creature comforts and technology at a lower price point. Of course, this does keep in mind that Honda's approach is very much, you get performance and that's what you get, nothing else. And while it is cool for hardcore drivers, it does leave some potential buyers wishing, there's just a little bit more to entice them over to that side. The other complaint I saw was the ride quality, you guys, so let's talk about it. So you have the FL5 for a day, right? You're going to probably notice the suspension is fantastic for handling, but it's going to be a bit firm. So on rough roads, you're definitely going to feel it, and even in comfort mode, apparently the ride isn't really that forgiving. On top of that, Honda didn't load the car up with sound deadening, so road noise on a highway, it is going to be noticeable. especially when you look at other cars again at the price point. I know it's not like a broken record, but remember guys, it's a very expensive car, so it makes sense that you kind of cross shop it with the competition. At 70 miles per hour, people are saying how you could usually hear every little thing from the tires and the road surface. And some owners do though love the raw feel. They say it makes the car a bit more connected. But others do argue that for the price, the cabin should feel a little more refined and premium. After all, when you're cross shopping, like I said, a BMW or an Audi or those kind of things, the Civic will start to feel a little bit cheap inside, even if it's the best driving vehicle of all time. Now for this last one, this is something that I still see people complain about quite a bit, especially in the Facebook groups, which I find interesting. And that just, again, this goes to the price, the competition, you guys. Okay, because again, you're probably looking at, even if you were to get MSRP, a minimum of, at least here in California, around $50,000, out the door after taxes and fees. And there are just so many other options. If we're looking at similar level, you have like the Corolla GR, of course, which is pretty cool. Let's have a, rowdier all-wheel drive system for cheaper. Again, we'll talk about the Supra, which is rear-wheel drive and has that great, BMW B58. You can get lightly used BMW M2, Audi S3s, even a Mustang Mach-1. And I guess when you start really looking at that, the Civic Type R for some people will feel a bit harder to justify. Because yes, it's one of the best handling front-wheel drive cars currently out there, but not everyone wants to pay luxury car prices for something that to most people, it still is, and it still looks just like a normal, Honda Civic. So what do you guys think, guys? Do these flaws make the FL5 overrated or not? Do you own one? Let me know your own opinions about it down below. Or if you own an FK8, what do you think of the FL5? Is it still the king of the hot hatches? Of course, let me know down in the comments. I love using my comment section as a sort of discussion board. And with that, guys, this is Rob, and have a good one.